Welcome to the May 29th, 2025 Bristol County Water Authority Board of Directors meeting. First major item on the agenda is public input. Not seeing any members of the public here now. We'll assume that there's no public input. The next item is approval of minutes from the board meeting of April 24th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion, corrections, clarifications needed on the minutes? No. Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining. We have one abstention. Any nay votes? None. The ayes have it. The meeting minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is the Executive Director's monthly report. Mr. Kutu.
Good afternoon, everybody. Report for May. So the Tucker Water project, Beta Group continues to advance the plans, particularly with respect to the critical crossings. We also just received fairly recently an updated schedule, which I've attached for everybody to take a look at. Schedule still shows that for a majority of the elements, those plants should be at 90% design by the summer into respective permitting agencies towards the end of summer, with the one exception of the blending and control station. And that's really due to the change that we made going from an individual station that would serve Bristol County Water only to a combination station at the East Providence facility. So that change, that element has been extended a little further out.
Excuse me, Steve.
Yes, sir.
A question on process here. You mentioned the 90% design and mentioned it would then be submitted for permitting by the end of the summer. So from a process viewpoint, so we make the submittal to the permitting agencies. They review and give us back comments on it or approval of the plans or approval pending addressing issues or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't typically give you any time frame in which that's going to be done, right?
Correct.
And then, but then once that approval is granted, the next step from that would be to finalize the plans and then go forward. But we still have the blending and control station that's somewhat separate. But could anything be moved forward without that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The majority of the plants can. And there's different permitting involved. You have the rail crossings, so the railroad will be looking at those specifically. You have the crossing at 10 Mile River, so you can have DEM and Wetlands Division looking at that piece individually. You're going to have DOT and Federal Highway looking at the tunnel crossing of the interstate. So, all these different elements have their own respective kind of permitting agencies looking at them. DOH should have the final on the entire project as a whole. DOT will also look at the pipeline route, the majority based on state highways. So we're looking at that piece as well. And East Providence as well.
But these permits are going to be BCWA's and East Providence's responsibility? Or do we go out and find a contractor and let the contractor do it?
No, we need to take the permits first before we hire a contractor. We don't have permission to build anything until we get the permits.
But it's very conceivable, I would think probable, that we would have approvals between now and the end of the fiscal year to put something out on the streets to have something worked on. Does that sound reasonable? I'm not asking for a guarantee here.
Well, we're not planning on bidding this as individual units.
Okay. Okay. So it would have to have the blending and control station.
Doesn't have
plans
everything,
included as well.
everything.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I guess if we do that,
Mhm.
you do all of the permitting, and okay, here's our path that we're gonna go on from the pipeline,
Yeah.
then we hire a contractor, you're gonna implement our plan. Then if they find problems, then it's gonna come back to us and be on our nickel to correct the drawing set and so on and so forth. Whereas if we give them 100, they accept 100% drawings and go and do the permitting and so on and so forth, it's on their nickel, I think. I just don't see us being in the driver's seat for permitting and then awarding a contract to someone and taking our, then you're gonna have a whole nother review process of the drawing set.
I mean, every project that we have, I mean, it's all designed and permitted before it actually goes out to bid.
I think it would be almost impossible for them to bid,
I mean,
not have the permits.
Yeah.
Right. And when they bid on something, they're bidding on it, saying they're going to do it according to the plans and specs that they've been given. Unless something
And the
considerably different occurs.
and the permits are issued to the owner, not to the contractor.
Now, my reason for asking is this a project that could be broken into pieces? And we don't have to have a discussion of it tonight, but I wasn't certain from what I was seeing in here if we could proceed with, 6 different parts or something. Anyway. No.
That is, it could be done that way.
Yeah.
It could potentially be done that
Yeah.
way, but that's not how we've been looking at it at this point. With respect to other crossings, we did receive plans for the rail crossing on Pawtucket Avenue, the northern limit of the project. Beta Group has been looking at, given the extent of the work zone required to move this off the roadway. Pawtucket Avenue is fairly narrow at that location. The plan set that we did receive will require some significant coordination with the local property owner and businesses in that area to get that work off the roadway. So, traffic can continue. Specifically, this is at, I don't know if you know, familiar with where Sky Zone is on Pawtucket Avenue. It's a trampoline park, but there's also a big industrial park at that location as well. There's an area right off the Pawtucket Avenue that's been identified as an area that they can kind of tunnel underneath the railroad at that location. With respect to the plans for the treatment plant, it was right after our meeting, the April meeting. I got a call from the Warren town manager, who had received a call from a couple of council people, and it was only coincidentally. They didn't know what our plans were, but they wanted to know what our plans were for the buildings. So we set up which wasn't a bad thing, we set up a Zoom call. Warren participated with that meeting, and we told them that our plan was to put out this RFP, given some of the interest that we've been receiving with some of the meetings that we've had with community members. And so they were actually happy to hear that. And then they also asked us to review the RFP, and we did afford them the opportunity to take a look at it. And we did receive some comments that we'll take into consideration as we move forward, but it did delay in actually getting this out on the street. And I hope to get this out sometime next week. So that's that. And then with respect to the new maintenance garage, we requested a task order fee from Park Corporation for the design, plan documents, and we hope to get that soon and present that to the board at the next meeting. For the dam removal project, contractor has returned this past month, doing some minor work, additional grading, removing some accumulated sediments that had kind of gotten trapped in upstream at the upper basin, seeding, cleanup, and we installed a kind of a small gravel parking area off to the side of the road at the request of the Warren Conservation Commission, which they kind of had before the project took place. But given now the time of year that all the additional plantings, there's a pretty significant planting and shrub plan, but given the time of year, we're heading into the summer season, that work will now take place in the fall. We really don't want to plant everything and then get hit with the heat and everything dies. So, as far as the lead service line replacement program, we're down to one remaining public line, which is scheduled to be replaced tomorrow, which is good news. And I updated the lead service line replacement program chart. And the biggest thing I think for this project is we were approached by the vendor or contractor that's working with the Department of Health. They have been the kind of like the repository for all the data that's being submitted to the DOH on this program. And they do have some funding. And we got a call and said, hey, you guys want some assistance and helping identify some of the unknowns, and so we took advantage of that. So we've been working with them and coming up with a statement of work. It's going to be happening fairly quickly. I guess the funding ends at the end of June, but we'll be sending and notifying approximately 360 customers that we don't have any information on their private side service line. This letter, I can give you all a copy, which is recently finalized. This will be going out to those customers. Essentially, to do an inspection, you need to get inside the house. And this company, 120 Water, will be working with another vendor called Rhode Island Rural Water Association, and they'll have technicians making appointments with customers, and hopefully we can get some response and kind of knock off some of these unknowns. If a customer gets this letter and they're not comfortable with having an inspector inside their house, they can always just take our survey, and they can do it online. And once we know what the line is made of, plastic, galvanized material, as long as we know it's not lead, kind of get off that list. So,
Steve, I got a question. Last time they replaced the meter inside my house, the authority, and I can't remember how many years ago that was. Well, they had made a note at that time.
A majority of ours were found out that way.
Yeah.
For some reason, there were a handful that weren't.
Okay.
Mike, do you know why some of those never got captured?
Specifically, no, but the meter replacement program did start internally 2 to 3 years prior to the contract that went out to do it holistically through the system. So the ones that were done kind of ad hoc previously didn't have the same method of documentation that we implemented during the MATS program.
Thank you.
So that's the Fountain Avenue tank. We had
I just have one
Yes,
question
sir.
on your letter.
Yep.
BCWA must perform an inspection of your water service line. If a guy, with the meter replacement, I remember hearing about guys saying, you're not coming in my house. The must here is,
But you have to read the whole sentence.
yeah.
It says must perform an inspection to determine its material.
Yeah.
So if you want to know what it is,
But
you
I
have
mean,
to
if
see
I don't
it.
want you in my house, your inspection is.
Well, they can take a survey online, or they could, you know, and kind of, or they can go through, or if we don't hear it from them, or they just decide just to throw this away, they'll be getting a letter that you have a lead service line for the next 10 years from us.
The other thing is that you get them direction, I think online in previous
Yeah.
correspondence about how you can determine what it is.
Right, that was in the,
Yeah.
when we started it. I didn't know, never mind.
The Fountain Avenue tank, we're doing some additional work with PAR, do some additional evaluation on the long-term planning for that facility. For water purchases, they continue to decline. Been a pretty wet spring. For the month of April, down 4%, and we're down 4% for the year over the prior 5-year average. Personnel and training, we've conducted interviews for seasonal summer laborers, and we're hoping to hire a couple of seasonal laborers for the season. They're still kind of going through their processing. We completed our spring flushing, and annual report is in progress. And I think I mentioned that unlike the previous years where we got a PR firm, put that together, we're doing it in-house. Actually, notably, Lauren is doing it in-house.
Voluntold.
Thank you, Lauren. That is my report.
Thank you. Mike, do you want to add anything?
Just quickly, the only thing to add is, I don't know if anyone noticed, but the Medicom tank, the elevated one that's fairly visible in areas of Bristol, finally got its cleaning. So I tried to get a picture of it here, but the drone's up there about 100 feet in the picture on the right. It's a fairly sizable unit.
The spider in the sky.
And to pull up all that hose and spray, but it did a good job. So I didn't provide a clean photo, but driving around, you can see that it no longer has the film on it. So
This was a cleaning process?
it was a cleaning process, yes. Very responsible contractor, came back, did it, missed some spots. He came back additional time to touch up, so very satisfied with the outcome.
With the fire department.
We didn't run out of battery.
Get rid
by the
of,
fire
get rid of the tower truck.
Yeah, he doesn't last very long in the air.
That's gotta be a happy battery to get them up there.
Yeah. You only can go up for like 15, 30 minutes and then.
That's right.
Another battery.
With
Yeah, yes,
your hydraulic modeling, are you looking at, we were looking for the low-end sites, you know, where we still have low water pressure throughout the system?
So the model can develop that, but we're specifically looking at the Fountain Avenue tank. Those are scenarios that PAR is working on right now.
I was looking and asking about what our plan is for those areas still in having low water pressure, that people with pumps still.
So the high service expansion and its phasing, we completed one phase of it, but further study is required for additional expansion, and that's something that we have talked about, but we haven't explored. We did some early feasibility of it, specifically like areas like Tower and Vernon, the higher hills off Medicom down there, and we looked at it kind of schematically with PAR, but further study is definitely necessary.
Are we gonna look at that
Yeah, one of the
You
things
know,
that,
well, people come in and say, hey, I'm still running my pump, and you're
Yeah.
not. You know, but-
yeah, exactly, and I can talk about this now because it's not a conflict for me to talk about, but in my old house at the top of Half Mile Hill, as it's called, where the water tank is on Hope Street, my house right across the street, I had to have a pump, and I had to replace my pump, and I had to replace my pump again. So I went through 3 pumps in about a 35-year period of time, and the price on the pumps went up and up and up and up, of course. And that's kind of one of I heard this in other communities as well, is we love having the public water, but we don't like having to pay more than everybody else to have the public water. And so I think what Bob is asking here, let's identify where these problem areas are and see what we can do about them. And the other, associated with the policy on those pumps, I think the policy was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that you got paid a certain amount, not the whole thing, one time only. And so when that pump died 10 years later, I had to pay the whole thing, and when it died 10 years after that, I had to pay the whole thing again. And so I can appreciate what people live with, because I lived with it, and didn't complain. Because
Do we have it documented where we have the lack of water feed?
The lack of what?
It's a lack of water pressure and flow.
We have all the pressures and documented through the hydraulic mountain, yeah.
Well, that's what I asked. So if we have that, then we should, I'm asking that we put together a plan that says, this is how we're gonna get these people back up to,
yeah,
it's not new water, it's just improving on what they're getting. Similar to what we did with the high pressure lines.
We can put together a report for next meeting.
what's the magnitude of the problem? Is there 1,000 people out there, or is it 10, or whatever it is?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mike, just for my own information, what's the size of the hose that drone pulls up there?
We just have got like a garden hose type size.
Garden hose?
Yeah, it wasn't that big. Because it's pressure, it's essentially a power washer discharge hose, because it's pressurized from the ground going up.
All right.
Surprised it didn't push the drone away.
Well, it's a big boy up there, so it was able to manage the thrust.
Anything else, Mike?
Not much else to touch upon. Most things were touched upon, so I mean, if anyone has any additional questions, I'm happy to fill in any gaps.
How are things up there on the streets of Bristol County?
Things are going well. I have a shorter report. So the upcoming capital improvement project, William Fogarty is planning on beginning the work in July of this year, and they are currently working on getting their product submittals in. And for the ongoing capital improvement project, Steve touched on that we have just one more galvanized service renewal left to do. It's actually, I wrote this a week ago. It was scheduled for Tuesday, but it got pushed to tomorrow. So if all goes according to plan, by tomorrow, that will be the last service renewal. And in the meantime, they've been focusing on the permanent asphalt restoration. They're going to be touching up the parade route starting next week. And then the last one I have here is just kind of touching on some of the larger scale water main projects that we have been working on with engineering firms and contractors. The first one I have here is the Bristol Loft project. You might have seen it. It's 125 Thames Street. That is going, as far as the water aspects of that project, is going to include a water main replacement as well as some service replacements, but we are just waiting on insurance, bypass plan, bonds, product submittals, So that was, it's got some things to be submitted for it to begin construction. And then the Mount Hope High School is going to be renovated. So we've been talking to PAR on that because it will also include renovation of the the domestic water service and the fire protection water service. And same with the Kickapoo Middle School. They're going to be doing some modifications to their fire protection service. And on both of those high school and middle school projects, we are waiting on service applications. So that will be upcoming.
Thank you. Anybody have any other questions, thoughts, comments? Dan?
Getting jealous of Mike and Colin's pictures. I gotta stop the pictures in my financials and like that. Might make it more interesting. All right, we're into April. So 2 months in. Numbers look kind of weird because we're 2 months in. So we look at April versus April. Looks like the revenue is almost 19% higher. There's a slight decrease in consumption during the billing period, but I think a lot of that increase is largely, some of it's the increase in the rate, obviously, that went through in March 1st. The rest of it is really, I had mentioned, I think, in a meeting or two before that Joe had taken our remaining, we had some monthly commercial and monthly government municipal accounts, and he converted them to quarterly. So that's skewing April. Probably skewed March a little bit, it's gonna skew April, it's gonna skew May. When you're looking at month versus month, it'll probably make it look a little weird, probably for the majority of the year until it works itself out. It'll start to flush out when you look at the cumulative, like through April, through May, through June, it'll start to balance out. But that's really the large increase in that revenue for April. Expenses were just a little bit higher, 6.3%. And when you look at month to month, most of the stuff is just timing. This year we had some increased legal fees because Joe's been working diligently on North Farm. We had some engineering consulting costs in 2025 April that we didn't have prior year. There's some increase in salaries and wages and operations. Looks like some of it, there's a holiday in there. The raises given last June, obviously that's in this April. There's a little bit of increase in overtime, and there's a holiday in there. Really wasn't anything different, so I just think it's just timing. It should flush itself out a little bit, because you'll see that through April too. It's increased by about that much, but we haven't increased staff, and I don't recall if there was anybody missing last April, anybody out on FMLA or leave or something, so that should work itself out. Those two increases were offset by a decrease in maintenance expense, operations maintenance expense, and that's largely due to, we had some gravel delivered last April, about $22,000 in gravel. So that's that. When we look at through April now, revenue's a little higher than last March by about 6.5%. Again, some of that's the rate increase that went through in March, and the balance would be that switch to the remaining quarterly, monthly billed customers now being billed quarterly. Expenses are just a little bit higher through April, 3.33%. The bulk of it is really the professional fees, as we said. Have a lot of increased legal fees, but the work on North Farm. The audit fee this year is higher than in prior years. So the amount going through in a standard journals every month is a little bit higher than it was last year. You can see the salaries and wages operations, $23,000. That's what we just discussed for the month of April. That's all April basically of 2025. And the depreciation and amortization is just a change in the standard journal entry for the year. I'll stop talking about that one next month, because that's always going to be over. Now next month it'll probably be $24,000. That's through April. We get to the actual versus budget. This is where some of that changing from the monthly folks to quarterly is skewing the numbers a little bit. It looks like we're over 21.77% over budget. That's affecting that. Some of that is also, as Rich was kind enough to send some questions on that, I looked into it too. I've mentioned this before in prior years. I look at the last like 4 years average and I try to spread the revenue. I don't just divide by 12, I try to spread the revenue as the last 4 years average kind of flows. And when I went back and looked, the last 2 years we've had a higher percentage in the first 2 or 3 months of the year. And that's because in December of 2023, Joe switched some of the routes. And if we remember back then, the revenue bumped up considerably. So that's the other part of why the budget is a little bit off. I might, next year, I might just back it down to maybe the last 2 years, to try to get it a little more. I like to use 3 or 4 years to try to smooth it out. You might have one weird year, but you can definitely look and see that the last 2 years, the percentage was much higher for those first 2 or 3 months than the previous 2 years. I think when I looked at the average, it's like, when I looked at the average for the first 2 months for the 4 years, it's like 14% of the revenue, and the average for the last for last year and the year before was like almost 17%, 16, 17%. So there's definitely been a shift. So I'll look into tweaking that next year for the budget, or maybe I'll think of another way to try to smooth out the revenue so that the budget doesn't, so we don't have questions every month on it, so it smooths out a little. The expenses were under budget in expenses, just under 9%. Again, a lot of this is timing. We have water purchases are under, as Steve had alluded to. We have operations and maintenance expenses a little under. Again, that I kind of just do divided by 12. So I don't know if we might have started the spring a little slower than in the past, or same thing with operations, other expenses. That should just be like a timing item. That should flush out as we're going along during the year. Pages 7 and 9 are the dollars billed and gallons delivered. We had a decrease in billing for the 2 months of just under 3%. And the consumption decreased almost 9%. Preliminary for May, it looks like we're gonna be right around 67 and change million gallons, so I don't anticipate that changing too much. We get to page 9, which is 10, which is the trust fund report. The debt service ratio is still up there, 11.39, down from 11.77 in March. I still think it'll tick down a little bit more in May, because I had mentioned we had gotten reimbursement for some of the dam work at the beginning of March and the beginning of April, so that's kind of skewing the numbers a little bit too. So I anticipate that will creep down, and we've been paying for some of these phase 2 items. I got some invoices in there now out of cash, because we're almost done with the project fund money from the last bond issue, so I anticipate that debt service ratio is going to continue to creep down as the year goes on. And then page 10 is the pension summary. There was a slight decrease for the month, just under $1,800, mostly due to withdrawals for the month. And there was a slight increase for the pension year of $59,000, and that's just due to contributions and unrealized gains exceeding the withdrawals. And the balance as of the end of April is $3.655 million. We have April, May, June, so we have 2 more months in the pension year.
Anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts? Okay. We have a number of action items coming up here. First has to do with vehicle purchase. Steve, you want to explain this?
Yes, we're looking at purchasing a new Ford F-250 utility truck to replace a 10-year similar type vehicle for our O&M staff. We've solicited quotes from 4 pre-qualified vendors on NDAs. We received 2 quotes. one from Jack Madden Ford and Montgomery MHQ. We're also, as part of the bid proposal, it included trade of two vehicles, two older Ford F-250s. So the net total price, the lowest responsive bidder was Jack Madden Ford, so we're recommending to purchase this Ford F-250 from Jack Madden Ford for $56,320. But we're also asking for a 10% contingency. We don't anticipate it, but just in case there are any cost escalations prior to delivery for a total not to exceed value of $61,592.
Motion to approve with contingencies.
Second.
56,325.
Another Ford.
The motion is to make the award to Jack Madden Ford for $56,320 plus a 10% contingency for a total not to exceed $61,592. Any discussion? I have just a question. Where are these two dealers? I've never heard of either one, but
One's up in Mass. Jack Madden's up in Mass.
They're both up in Mass, aren't they?
no. And these are off at the Rhode Island Master Price Agreement, right? Aren't they?
Yeah, and the last vehicle we bought last year was from Jack Madden Ford as well.
Okay.
There's a wild swing between trading value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazed at the trading value. Okay, any other discussion, comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as stated?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is for FY26 permanent pavement contract.
Yep, so for this item and the next three items are our annual contracts. We go out every year. This one is for paving services. We generally bid this out with an estimated quantities that may or may not be used throughout the year. We received two bids, and the road coming from J&L Excavation for a bid price of $126,950. JML has served Bristol County water very well in the past in this contract. We're recommending the contract with JML Excavation for $126,950. Again, it's only for bid items that are actually utilized throughout the year.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, and just trying to clarify this for minutes purposes. The total bid price is not something that is actually expected to be realized. These bid prices are a compilation of certain items at certain unit costs and then added up to a total. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So could the final contract and its estimates of what we might use, theoretically, it's possible that using the individual bid prices at a higher amount, if all of the items are used, would go above that 126,000. We're not necessarily.
It's conceivable.
Yeah, it's not, we're not creating a cap at 126 because this is established based on the individual unit prices, and that's what we're really approving. But we do this for point of comparison.
How much do we usually spend on this contract? Can I get in here?
I don't know the number for this year. We
I know the other one.
did it for a year, we did it for
$5,000.
the other one.
Ballpark.
Roughly, it's not close to this number.
We do not normally approach the
Right.
amount listed.
Right, and I wasn't trying to put fear in everybody's hearts.
30,000, 40,000 maybe?
Yeah, so, yeah,
If that-
5,000 on the next one, so.
Yeah.
Small numbers.
And the bid award vote will go to JML Excavation. And we've done work with them before, I think.
Yes.
Yes, that's,
Okay. Any other questions, comments? No?
I'm all set.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next item is the FY26 maintenance and service work contract.
Again, similarly, this is for, actual water utility type of work. Will only be called in kind of an emergency basis if our own forces were not able to do the work. It seems to me that over the years that this service contract is less and less utilization of it, because we're able to handle majority, if not all, the events that occur in the system. Nonetheless, we do put out estimated quantities and bid items for purposes of comparing pricing if we do have different contractors bidding on this. We only received one bid. Again, it's from JML Excavation. Total bid price of $278,785. And we recommend the contract go to JML Excavation for that amount. And just as comparison, we did look into this contract last year, and we paid approximately $45,000 for this type of work.
Move to approve.
for JML excavation.
Yes.
I'll second that.
We have a motion. Do I have a second? You're seconding it. Any other comments, questions, thoughts? No? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The last bit of, last award.
Okay, the last annual contract awards are for water main pipe and stock materials. Every year we go out to bid, and you see the long list of stock materials that we requesting pricing from. And we did receive prices from six wholesale houses. And rather than award each individual item, we are requesting that the recommendation is the items highlighted in the attachment provided in the memorandum be awarded to the specified vendor for each category. Those vendors are Twin Water, PJ Prescott, Ferguson Waterworks, Holy and Sons, Styles Company, and Putnam Pipe.
Will this just be a motion to approve as identified by management within the bid specification sheet?
Yes.
So I move that.
Second.
Everybody understand? Okay. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, next is the quarterly write-offs, which is for information only. I think we've heard this many times, but Dan, do you want to?
Joe had just mentioned before he went to let you know that this is low, this is good. Especially whatever this is, this technically the first quarter, it's a little on the low side of our normal first quarter.
Which is generally low to begin with.
Which is generally low to begin with,
Our low can work out.
net $4,400.
Yeah, can't beat that.
He does a good job of tracking when they move and throwing liens on properties and stuff like that, so.
Okay. Do we have a need to go into executives? Well, the board minutes.
Do you need to check this? Official?
No, it's just info.
No, it's just
Information.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We need to go into executives?
Motion to go into executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2.
Second.
All All in favor?
Aye.
Open session now.
So make a motion that we seal the meeting minutes from executive session.
Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
So.
Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.